Hello, my name is Peter Parfitt. Welcome to New Brit Workshop. I've been asked to make a coat rack, and it's designed to be used by 3 young boys, and so I thought I'd do something which has their names on. Now, there are only 2 coat hooks. The other 2 are on order. Unfortunately, Screwfix were out of the ones that I've been using. I'm just waiting for them to come in. But if you imagine, there would be 1 more here and 1 more at the end. Now, although I've used the CNC to put the boys' names on, you don't need to do that. You can do all the other things as well if you don't have a CNC. You could put some little patterns on with your router, maybe. So anyway, I'm going to take you through the construction of this very simple little gift. But before I start, I do need to mention Jeffrey Harding, who wrote to me recently and said, please would I, in each video, just mention the various tools that I'm using. I do try to, because if I don't mention them in the video, I then get 10 or 15 comments to answer by people asking questions about them. So I do try, and I've tried to make a particular effort in this video. So I've cleaned up my piece of oak, and it's squared all round, and I now need to look to see where the defects are, which I would rather be hidden on the reverse side. Now, I quite like that knot there. You can probably see it there. But I'm not so sure that I like this graining here at the edge. If I look on this side, you can see there's the other side of that knot. Doesn't look too bad. I think this will be my face side. It will be up this way. The next thing I need to do is look for other defects which will affect my strategy now. And I can see straight away, you can probably see it here, there's a split at this end, and it goes on this side to about there. On this side, there's nothing in particular, although on this edge, there's a little bit of a rubbishy bit there. So really, this is the key line that I'm going to cut away, and then I'll measure it and then do the other cut at the other end. I want to fill this defect here, and ages ago, I bought this stuff. And for doing very small amounts, it's not too bad at all. It's called Milliput. Don't ask me where I bought it from. Google it and find out who the supplier might be in your area. But it comes with 2 pieces. I'm not sure whether this is just a filler or whether this is the resin and that's the hardener. I don't know how it works, but what I do know is that you cut equal amounts of these 2, mix them together, really thoroughly, and then you can apply it. Now I have got this in white, and it is really effective. If you're doing, I don't know, an engraving in a piece of walnut, and fill the engraving with the white stuff and then sand it down smooth, and you get whatever lettering is standing out at you. It's really good. Anyway, here's my stuff. I've got to start mixing this now. It really does depend on the temperature you're working at. But I find that the best way is to try and squeeze it down, the 2 pieces, squeeze it down as flat as you can. And then start working it in your fingers. And it's getting softer all the time, which is quite good. Getting reasonably long, bending over, making it go long again, bending over. And if you see any streaks in this, I don't know if you can actually see, there's some little streaks there. That means you've not mixed it enough, so keep going. So I'm pleased with that, and I'm going to use this spatula. Now I'm making sure I'm really forcing this in to the surface, because I can sand this off very easily. Well, that filler has gone off nicely now, so I'm just going to rub it down and actually clean this piece up. That was at 120 grit. I'm just going to put the 180 on and give that a quick finish off with 180. And I'm sure you can probably see just how nicely that's come up. And by the time I put some Osmo on here, it will look absolutely super duper. Now, I get asked almost every week what is my favourite sander, or what sander would I recommend if you're only going to buy one. This is the Festool ETS EC 150/3. and I use this all the time. It's my absolute go-to sander. Now, because I've got the smaller of the two x-carves, my piece of stock is such that if I place it in this machine, it's impossible for my spindle to reach the full extent left and right that it needs to. So I'm going to cheat slightly, or rather I have cheated slightly. And the way I've overcome this limitation is to have an offset of 75 millimeters. I've put a pencil line here, 75 millimeters from this edge of my stock. And I'm going to line this up with what I normally have as my 0 point for the x-axis. And that's easy for me to do, and I can do that by eye. Now, my design, which I've done using Vectrix Aspire, and you could use V-carve Pro or V-carve Desktop, I've moved everything over by 75 millimeters. When I look at the design, and you can see an image of it on the screen, it's biased to the left. But that's only because I'm using this point as my reference. So that's how I've overcome it. That means I can carve everything out here with no problem at all. So that's in the right place. I've got it against my two stops here, and I'm going to clamp that down. Then I'm going to put in my engraving cutter, and this one is from Trend. It's a reasonably expensive cutter. The thing I do most on the CNC is engraving with a 60-degree cutter. So it's worth investing in a decent tool, and you'll see shortly just how well this performs. So my job's all set up just here. I've got the computer connected. I'm just going to home everything now, and then we'll be ready to go. And now you can see that finished job. It's absolutely beautifully clean. Now, ordinarily, when I've finished a piece like this, I would give it a jolly good rub over with this little plastic bristle brush. The bristles are pretty tough, but it's not enough to damage the surface of any wood. And I got this from Axminster a long time ago. You'd have to look it up. I don't know what the part number is or anything else about it. Don't even know what it's called. That's really nice. Now what I've got to do is do the edging and then finish it off ready to put the various hooks on. And in order to do this, I'm going to use my Festal OF1010 router. Now this really is a lovely piece of kit, and I've had it a very long time, never gone wrong, and it's the router I use most because most of the routing jobs I do are fairly small and delicate ones, but even so, this can take some quite chunky router bits if you need to put them in. Now, a long time ago, I sung the praises of getting some inexpensive sets of router cutters, and in this case, for the edge of this piece, I'm going to use this Roman OG cutter. Getting an inexpensive set like this is a good idea, and you only need to invest in the really, really good ones for those that you use a lot, and that's this little range I've got here, and these are the professional cutters. So this is the one I'm going to fit. Now, continuing the theme of me telling you all the different tools I'm using during this project, this is a thing called a Xylis Vice. It's no longer in production. I bought it about 40 years ago. It was made by the Xylis company in Switzerland. They are still in business, but they now only make kitchen equipment. And I did inquire about the patent on this, and also the moulds that we use for the castings and so on, the drawings. And Xylis, the company as it is today, know nothing about it. My understanding is that someone is making something that looks very much like this, possibly being made in China or Taiwan, somewhere like that. And so you can get something that is similar. But it's really, really good because these bits go onto this part here, and you can then fit this on a bench any way you like. There's a piece here, perhaps you can not quite see it. It's just here, which I've already clamped on the bench, and that's like an end stop. And I'm going to be doing the two ends of this piece of writing now, followed by the sides. The reason for that is when you do the ends, you tend to get a bit of breakout. So I'm going to set it up like that. Now the vise itself can be used in a number of different ways. You can have it mounted this way up or that way up. When it's this way up, you can use this part to push against a bit of stock, and that's exactly what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to fit this on here like so, get it positioned in pretty much the right place, and then I tighten it up from underneath. Now when I made this bench, I deliberately made the thickness of the edge of the top such that I could mount this vise on it if I needed to. I don't use this vise very much these days because there are other means with the path guide system and multiple hole benches that you can use to do this sort of thing. But I thought, as someone has recently mentioned it to me, I thought I'd show it to you. Now I've got my cutter mounted in the router. It's a bearing guided router cutter, so therefore it will follow the edge of the piece of stock. And I've set the height at about 1 millimetre shallower than I need. The reason for that is that when you're doing a bit of decorative cutting, with most cutters, not all, with most cutters, you can do 2 or more passes. So rather than taking everything off in the first pass, you can then have a second pass, or indeed even a third, where you're taking just a little bit less, and that leaves a slightly finer finish. So I've set this up for 2 cuts. The first one is at the height I've got there, and the second one I've got my stop set so I can go down to that second position when I need. I'm going to go all round at one height setting and then go all round at the final height setting. So I'm now going to do the final cut. As you go across here with the router, it's really important to make sure that the base stays flat on this surface. And it's particularly important when you get to the edge over here that you don't accidentally sort of rock like this because you're not holding it properly. Make sure you keep flat on that surface. Now my design uses 4 coat hooks, one here, one here, one here, one here. And I've marked the centre lines of where they're going to go. It's a real nuisance. These come from Screwfix. They're really good. They're not very expensive at all. But I've only got 2 of them, and they're on back order. So I'm sorry, but in this video you'll only see two of the hooks on the coat rack. It's a bit of a pity, isn't it? Never mind. Now, the way this is going to be fixed to the wall is that I'm going to have a screw which screws into the wall behind this hook here, and a screw that screws into the wall behind this hook here. But I do need something up above here, so what I'm going to do is have 2 screw holes, one here, and I'm going to use one of these little cup washer things that you get into a shallow counter bore, which will then make that look just a little bit tidier, because that will be on show. But when I say it's on show, it actually will be behind the coat hook, so it's not really going to show up particularly. So I'm going to first drill the counter bores that I need for the screw heads. Then I'm going to drill the holes for the screws to go through. I'm also going to drill the pilot holes for the screws that go through the hooks. Now do make sure when you're doing counter bores like this that you do the large part first and then the hole that goes all the way through. Otherwise you'll find that centering the large hole, the counter bore itself, will be difficult. I'm just using 180 grit for this. This is a foam sanding block. It's a Festool one, and it's 120 grit granite. I don't have any 180 grit of this, but it does a good job on these ends. It's not quite spongy enough to be able to go all the way into all the bends and curves, but it's good enough. Excellent. Right, there we go. All ready for the Osmo. Now, I'm not going to be putting Osmo on the back of this, but I do want to put it on the sides and the top. And to allow me to stand this off from the bench, I've got some long screws here, which I'm just going to screw in a little bit, just enough into the 4 screw holes that would be used for the fixing to the wall. So those are in there. Now that gives me the ability to put Osmo all the way around here without it being a nuisance. I'll just give this a so that's all the dust off. Got a nice clean brush. I'm now going to put some Osmo on here. Now I need to use the brush to get the Osmo down into the bits of engraving. It's very important that that gets in there nicely. Otherwise one could just use a pad like this one. But in this particular case, the brush is the perfect tool. And I'm using Osmo Poly-X. It's the 3011 Clear Gloss. Now, if by any chance you feel you've allowed too much to go down into the engraving, dry the brush off as best you can, and then just go in there into the engravings, and this will effectively soak up the excess. You can see how I'm doing this. It's fairly straightforward and easy. I like to just finish off with a gentle wipe across, like so. And that's it. I'm going to leave that now to dry. I think it looks pretty good as it is. Well, that's it. It's done. I'm just waiting for the 2 more coat hooks to come in stock, and then either their mum or dad can pick it up and they can put it up on their wall. Many thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.